Welcome to Zoe Stories. Boss made me feel female. The first time I ever looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back, it was late, almost midnight, and the glow of my computer monitor painted the apartment in pale blue. My name is Ethan Cole, 26, assistant to one of the most intimidating executives in the city, Victoria Hale, the kind of woman whose perfume announced her arrival before her heels clicked through the marble corridors. By day, I was her quiet, efficient right-hand man, organizing schedules, reviewing presentations, and surviving the relentless pace of corporate life. But by night, I was someone else. Someone softer, quieter, almost free. It started small. A stolen moment in front of the mirror, a lingering curiosity when I saw women in the office carrying themselves with effortless grace. Then, one evening, alone in my apartment, I tried on one of Emma's old blouses, the one she'd forgotten in my closet after moving out months ago. She was my girlfriend once, but our relationship had withered under the weight of my secrets. She said I had walls around me. She didn't know that those walls were built to hide something she might never understand. The fabric against my skin felt dangerous. It was smooth, delicate, and wrong in all the ways that made it right. I told myself it was just curiosity, just an experiment. But curiosity has a way of unraveling everything. At work, Victoria demanded perfection. She was beautiful, ruthless, and unnervingly observant. She could read people like open books, and I feared one day she'd read me too. I admired her confidence, the way she owned every room she walked into. Sometimes I'd catch myself wondering what it would feel like to carry that kind of power, not as a man, but as her. The company was preparing for its annual gala, and Victoria had given me more responsibility than ever before. I had to oversee everything: guest lists, catering, design. The stress was crushing, but something else kept pushing beneath the surface. That secret side of me wanted to breathe. At night, when I got home, I'd open my laptop and scroll through online stores. Dresses, heels, lipstick. I didn't buy anything at first, just looked. But soon, temptation won. A discreet delivery arrived one evening, a simple black dress, elegant but modest. I told myself it was for research, understanding fashion for the gala theme. But the moment I zipped it up, that excuse melted away. The mirror didn't show Ethan anymore. It showed someone I couldn't name yet. Someone trembling, terrified, but alive. I tried to bury that part again, but it followed me to work. Every time I saw Victoria glide past me in her fitted suit, I'd feel a mix of admiration and envy. I noticed her lipstick shade, her poise, her control. And I wondered if she'd ever guessed that her quiet assistant, the man who fetched her coffee and managed her calendar, was learning to contour his cheeks by watching her reflection in the office glass. One Friday evening, Victoria asked me to stay late. The office was empty, city lights flickering through the windows. She leaned against her desk, studying me with those sharp eyes. "You look tired, Ethan," she said, her voice both gentle and commanding. "I'm fine," I lied, my pulse quickening. "You work hard," she continued. "Almost too hard. Do you ever relax?" Relax. The word hit me like a challenge. I didn't know what to say. If I told her the truth, that the only time I felt relaxed was when I wasn't myself, she'd think I'd lost my mind. So I smiled and nodded, pretending to be the man she expected me to be. She handed me a file and said, "I want you to accompany me to the gala this year. You'll represent the department. Don't disappoint me." That night, as I walked home through the empty streets, the reality of her words hit me. The gala wasn't just an event, it was exposure. I'd have to stand next to her in front of hundreds of people, the perfect assistant. And yet, deep down, another thought whispered, what if I didn't have to be him that night? The thought scared me, excited me. When I got home, I pulled the dress from the closet again. I stood in front of the mirror and let the world fall away. I brushed my hair differently, practiced a softer smile. For the first time, I whispered a name to the reflection staring back at me. "Evelyn," I said quietly. The name fit like silk. But then my phone buzzed. A message from Emma. "Hey, I'm back in town. We should talk." My stomach dropped. The timing couldn't have been worse. I quickly changed back, shoving the dress into the drawer like a guilty secret. But the echo of that name, Evelyn, lingered in my mind. The next morning, Victoria called me into her office again. Her tone was different, colder. "Ethan," she said, "I've been reviewing your recent work. You've been distracted." I froze. Had she noticed something? Did I leave a trace? "I'm sorry, ma'am," I said quickly. She studied me for a moment longer, then smiled faintly. "You'll make it up at the gala. Wear something sharp. I want you to look your best." The words, "look your best," rang in my ears all day. That evening, as I sat alone in my apartment, the city buzzing outside, I opened the closet again. The dress hung there like a dare. Maybe I thought it wasn't just about hiding anymore. Maybe it was about becoming. I didn't know then that Victoria already suspected something. I didn't know she had seen the way my eyes followed her, the curiosity behind my polite smile. I didn't know she was planning something that would change everything. Because by the time the gala arrived, my boss wouldn't just be my boss anymore. She'd become the one who made me feel female. The week leading up to the company gala was a blur of meetings, revisions, and endless lists. Victoria's voice seemed to echo through my mind even after work, calm, precise, and unyielding. Every instruction from her carried weight. Every compliment felt like a secret reward. She was the kind of woman people admired from a distance and feared up close. And somehow, I was the only one standing close enough to see both sides, the elegance and the fire beneath it. But lately, she'd started looking at me differently. Her gaze lingered a second too long. Her tone softened unexpectedly. There were moments when it felt like she was testing me, waiting for me to reveal something I didn't even fully understand myself. One afternoon, she called me into her office again. The blinds were half drawn, sunlight slanting across the marble floor. Her jacket was off, her sleeves rolled up. "Ethan," she said, "I want your opinion on something." That sentence alone made my throat tighten. She never asked for opinions, she gave orders. She gestured toward 2 garment bags hanging by the door. The event planners sent 2 wardrobe options for the staff assisting me at the gala. One for the men, one for the women. "I'm not sure which design fits the overall theme better. You'll help me decide." My mouth went dry. I stepped closer, unzipped the first bag. A sleek black tuxedo, simple and sharp. The second revealed a fitted midnight blue dress, shimmering slightly under the light. It was elegant, professional, and breathtaking. "Which one?" she asked, watching me. I swallowed. "They're both excellent, Miss Hale." She smiled faintly. "You didn't answer." I hesitated. The dress almost seemed alive under the soft light. My voice came out quieter than I meant it to. "The blue one," I said. Her eyes glimmered. "I thought you'd say that." Something in her tone made me shiver, not fear, exactly, but awareness. Later that evening, as I was leaving, she stopped me at the elevator. "Ethan," she said, "about the gala. Remember, appearance matters. I expect you to look presentable, polished. People notice details." "I will," I promised, trying to sound steady. "Good," she said with a slow smile. "I trust you'll surprise me." That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of that blue dress haunted me. I opened my laptop again, scrolling through makeup tutorials, unsure what I was looking for. Maybe I just wanted to understand what made Victoria, and women like her, so magnetic. By midnight, I found myself practicing subtle gestures in the mirror. The way she tilted her head, how she smiled without showing teeth. Every imitation brought me closer to something I couldn't name. When Saturday came, I decided to go out. I didn't plan to. My nerves were a mess, but I couldn't stay trapped in my apartment anymore. There was a small boutique across town, the kind of place where no one knew my name. The clerk, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes, smiled as I walked in. "Looking for a gift?" she asked. "Yes," I lied quickly. "For a friend." "Lucky friend," she said. "What size?" I froze. About my height," I murmured. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing, pulling a few dresses from the rack. My hands trembled as I touched the fabric. "Would you like to try one?" she asked. My pulse roared in my ears.
Sure.
Inside the fitting room, my reflection felt unreal. The walls seemed to close in as I pulled the dress over my shoulders. The fabric hugged me differently this time, less like an experiment, more like an awakening. When I looked at myself, I didn't see Ethan. Not completely. I saw possibility.
A knock startled me.
"Everything okay in there?" the clerk asked. "Yes," I said quickly, voice higher than usual. When I stepped out, she studied me for a moment, then smiled softly. "You wear that better than most women I know." I flushed. "It's just for fun." "Of course," she said, though her eyes said otherwise. "Confidence suits you." I left the store with shaky hands, the dress neatly folded in a bag that suddenly felt too heavy to carry. Back in my apartment, I placed it on the bed, staring at it for a long time. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Victoria. Reminder: meeting tomorrow at 9. Bring the updated presentation. Also, wear something that makes you feel confident. That last line didn't feel like coincidence. When I showed up at the office the next morning, she noticed me immediately. "New haircut?" she asked. I stammered. "Just trimmed." She smiled knowingly. "It suits you." We worked late that evening, side by side, the office silent except for the hum of computers. I caught my reflection in the window. Two figures, one powerful, one uncertain. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "Do you ever wonder who you'd be if you didn't have to be this version of yourself?" My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "Sometimes people hide what they really are to fit in. I think you understand that better than most." I couldn't breathe. Did she know? I don't know what you mean," I said weakly. Her smile deepened. "Maybe not yet." As I left her office, I could still feel her eyes on me. There was something unsettling about the way she said "not yet," like she was peeling away layers I didn't know were visible. That night, I stood before the mirror again, the blue dress draped over my arm. My hands shook as I stepped into it. The world outside faded, the hum of the city, the ticking clock, everything. I looked at my reflection and whispered, "You're Evelyn now."
For a moment, I smiled.
For the first time in months, I felt beautiful. But then the sound of my phone shattered the silence. Message from Victoria. "Tomorrow's meeting has been moved to my home office. 8 p.m. Dress accordingly." My stomach twisted. Why her home? Why at night? And what did she mean by dress accordingly? I didn't know it yet, but that message marked the beginning of everything. The night of the meeting arrived faster than I expected. I spent hours pacing around my apartment, replaying her message in my head. "Tomorrow's meeting has been moved to my home office. 8 p.m. Dress accordingly." The phrase "dress accordingly" was haunting me. What did she mean? Was it just about professionalism, or something else entirely? By 7, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at two options laid out on my bed. On one side, my usual attire: slacks, a crisp shirt, tie. Safe. On the other side, the blue dress from the boutique, the one that had made me feel more like myself than anything ever had. My heart thudded. The rational side of me screamed that wearing it would be madness. But another part whispered something else. Maybe this is what she wants. I hesitated for a long time, hands trembling. Finally, I made a compromise: black trousers, fitted shirt, but softer in tone. I brushed my hair differently, used a touch of Emma's old concealer I still had, just enough to smooth my skin. It wasn't much, but it made me feel different. Calmer. When I arrived at Victoria's penthouse, the building loomed like something out of a movie. Tall glass walls, sleek architecture, security guards who looked like they belonged to another world. The elevator ride felt eternal. She opened the door herself. No assistants, no staff, just her. "Right on time," she said, her voice smooth and low. Her home was immaculate. Minimalist furniture, soft jazz playing, the faint scent of jasmine in the air. It didn't look lived in, more like curated. She led me into a study where 2 glasses of wine waited. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "I prefer to discuss creative ideas in a more relaxed environment." I nodded, unsure how to act. She gestured for me to sit. For a while, we talked about the gala, decor themes, guest coordination, schedules, but her tone was different tonight.
Softer.
She laughed more. Her gaze lingered on me, assessing, like she was trying to read a secret between the lines of my face. After a pause, she leaned back in her chair. You've been with me for what? 2 years now. Yes, I said. You're efficient, loyal, but lately you seem distracted. I froze. I'm sorry if... She raised a hand. Don't apologize. I'm not scolding you. I'm curious. Her eyes locked on mine. Is there something you're hiding? My throat went dry. No, of course not. Her lips curved in a faint smile. Ethan, I know people. I study them. You're carrying something heavy, something that's eating at you. I looked down at my hands, unsure how to respond. She stood, walked around the desk, and stopped beside me. Look at me. When I did, she was closer than she'd ever been. Do you trust me? The question hung in the air. I think so. Then I'll ask again, she said softly. Who are you when you're not here? My breath hitched. It was like she'd looked straight through every wall I'd built. I don't know what you mean, I whispered. She smiled faintly. You're lying. Then, with effortless confidence, she reached for a small remote on her desk. A hidden drawer slid open, revealing several fabric samples, soft silks, lace, velvet. She ran her fingers over them and said, These are for the female staff uniforms I'm designing for the gala, but I need help visualizing them. My pulse roared in my ears. She turned to me and said, Would you mind modeling one of them? I blinked. Model? Me? Her tone was calm but firm. I want an honest opinion, and you have the same build as one of the female presenters. It'll be quick. You're not shy, are you? My voice caught. I don't think. Her eyes softened, but there was a glint beneath them. Ethan, she said quietly, you can trust me. And somehow I believed her. Minutes later, I found myself in a side room, holding a hanger draped in silk. The door clicked shut behind me. My reflection stared back from the tall mirror, a nervous man clutching something beautiful and forbidden. I hesitated. Then, slowly, I began to change. The cool fabric slid over my skin like a whisper, every motion sending a rush through me. When I looked up, the person staring back wasn't quite Ethan anymore. My breathing quickened. My hands trembled as I adjusted the straps. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. I felt real. A knock came at the door. Are you ready? Victoria's voice was calm, almost amused. Just a second, I stammered. When I opened the door, she stood there, arms crossed, studying me. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, softly, I knew it. My heart stopped. Knew what? That there was more to you than you let anyone see. I wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. She circled me slowly, like an artist admiring a painting. You look surprisingly natural, she said, almost to herself. Not awkward. Not forced. I should probably change back, I whispered. Don't, she said firmly. The authority in her voice rooted me in place. Tell me, she continued, stepping closer. How does it feel? The question cut deeper than I expected. My throat tightened. It feels like I'm not pretending anymore. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides more than it reveals.
Good.
That's honesty.
You've been needing that.
I didn't know whether to thank her or run. She reached out, adjusting a loose strap on my shoulder with a casual touch that made my pulse race. You hide it well, she said softly. But not from me. We stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then she said, Wear it to the gala. If anyone asks, tell them it was my idea. My breath caught. Victoria. No arguments, she said, her tone final. You'll understand soon. As I changed back into my clothes, my mind spun. Why had she pushed me like that? Was she testing me, or helping me uncover something I'd been too afraid to admit? When I left her apartment that night, I felt the cool wind on my face, the city lights blurring around me. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. But one thing was certain. Victoria Hale had seen through me completely. And for the first time, I wasn't sure whether to fear her or thank her. The next few days at the office felt unreal. Every time I saw Victoria, my pulse spiked, remembering the silk clinging to my skin and the calm authority in her voice when she said, "Wear it to the gala." I told myself she couldn't have meant it literally. It had to be another one of her cryptic tests, the kind she used to push her employees past their limits. But when her emails started ending with subtle phrases like, "Don't forget to prepare your outfit," I wasn't so sure anymore. She was testing me, yes, but for what? At work, she treated me as if nothing unusual had happened. But there was something different in her eyes, a spark of amusement mixed with something darker. Curiosity. The day before the gala, she called me into her office again. She was standing by the window, arms folded, the skyline glowing behind her. "Tomorrow's important," she said without turning. "It's not just another event. It's a statement of who we are." "Yes, ma'am," I replied automatically. Then she turned, looking directly at me. "Have you chosen what you'll wear?" The question hit like a punch.
Yes.
"The suit, of course." Her eyebrow arched slightly. "The suit." I swallowed. "Isn't that what you meant?" She studied me for a moment, then smiled faintly. "If that's what makes you feel confident." The tone of her voice told me it wasn't. I left her office with my heart hammering. She knew exactly what she was doing, dangling between command and suggestion, watching how far I'd go. That evening, as I stood before the mirror in my apartment, the blue dress hung from the closet door again like it was waiting for me. The city hummed outside my window, but inside, it was silent, just my heartbeat and the quiet echo of her words. "Wear it to the gala." I tried to imagine it, walking beside her, everyone staring. It was impossible, wasn't it? But a part of me, a dangerous, growing part, wanted to see her expression if I did. Wanted to feel her approval again, that look in her eyes when she said, "I knew it." I sat down on the edge of the bed, running my fingers over the fabric. "What are you doing, Ethan?" I whispered to myself. Then, almost like a reflex, I corrected myself. "Evelyn." The sound of it filled the room like a confession. The next morning, I avoided Victoria as much as possible. I buried myself in last-minute preparations, finalizing reports, handling logistics. But she caught me just before I could leave for the day. "Ethan," she said, calling from her doorway. I turned, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes, Ms. Hale." She tilted her head slightly. "You forgot this." She held out a small box tied with a black ribbon. I hesitated before taking it. "What is it?" Her lips curved. "Consider it motivation." When I got home and opened the box, my breath caught. Inside was a pair of silver earrings, simple, elegant, unmistakably feminine. There was a note beneath them in her precise handwriting. "Confidence begins when you stop pretending to be someone you're not." I sat there for a long time, staring at the note, the earrings glinting under the light. Was she mocking me or helping me? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her reflection behind mine, whispering challenges I wasn't ready to face. By dawn, I'd made my decision, not with logic, but with a quiet, reckless certainty. When evening came, I opened the closet again. The blue dress waited. I slipped into it slowly, deliberately. Each motion felt like stepping across a line I couldn't uncross. The mirror revealed someone new, someone fragile, yes, but not afraid. I added the earrings. They caught the light perfectly. "Evelyn," I whispered. "You're ready." The drive to the venue felt like an out-of-body experience. Every streetlight made my pulse jump. Every passing car felt like exposure. I told myself I'd change before anyone saw me, but I didn't bring a backup outfit. When I arrived, the gala was already in full swing. Music, laughter, champagne. People in tuxedos and gowns filled the grand ballroom. For a moment, I couldn't move. Then from across the room, I saw her. Victoria stood near the stage, surrounded by executives and investors, wearing a deep crimson gown that shimmered with every movement. When her eyes found mine, she didn't look surprised. She smiled. Slowly, deliberately. She excused herself from her group and walked toward me. Every step of her heels echoed like a heartbeat. When she stopped in front of me, she leaned in and whispered, "Perfect." I couldn't speak. Her eyes glimmered with satisfaction.
You see?
You belong in this world more than you realize. I tried to steady my voice. Victoria, people will. They'll see confidence, she interrupted, and I'll make sure of it. Before I could protest, she took my arm.
Come.
Walk with me. Heads turned as we crossed the ballroom. My heart raced, but Victoria's presence grounded me. Her grip was firm, protective almost, as if daring anyone to question me. When we reached the main table, she introduced me simply. "This is Evelyn, my assistant." The word hit me like lightning. Evelyn.
Not Ethan.
Evelyn. And no one questioned her. The next hour passed in a blur. Conversations, champagne, polite smiles. People treated me differently. They didn't know, of course, but they responded to what they saw. Confidence.
Poise.
A strange kind of allure. Victoria watched me from across the room, a faint smile on her lips every time our eyes met. When the speeches began, she took the stage. "Tonight," she said, "is about transformation, about redefining what we thought we knew." Her gaze flicked toward me for half a second. No one noticed, but I did. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. And as she stepped down, she whispered something only I could hear. "Now you understand what it feels like to be seen." I didn't know whether to thank her or run. The night blurred into flashes of sound and light. Compliments. Questions. Smiles. For the first time, I felt both terrified and free. But as the crowd thinned and the music slowed, Victoria's assistant approached me with a discreet message. "Ms. Hale wants to see you upstairs." Alone. The ballroom faded behind me as I followed the corridor toward the private suite. My heels clicked softly against the marble floor, echoing through the empty hall. I wasn't sure what waited behind that door: praise, punishment, or something far more dangerous. But when I reached the top of the stairs, I already knew one thing. Whatever happened next, Ethan was gone. Only Evelyn remained. The hallway outside Victoria's private suite felt too quiet, too perfect. The muffled music from the gala faded until all I could hear was my heartbeat echoing in my chest. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the door. When I pushed it open, the room was dimly lit. The city skyline stretched out behind floor-to-ceiling windows, and in the center of it all stood Victoria, facing the glass, a glass of wine in her hand. She didn't turn around right away. "I was wondering if you'd come," she said softly. Her voice carried that same dangerous calm that always disarmed me, commanding yet strangely intimate. "I didn't think I had a choice," I replied, trying to sound confident. At that, she turned. Her eyes caught the low golden light, shimmering like molten amber. "There's always a choice," she said, taking a slow sip. "You made yours the moment you walked in wearing that dress." I froze. She walked closer, each step deliberate, her heels barely making a sound on the carpet. "You could have hidden," she continued. "You could have changed your mind. But you didn't. Do you know why?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. Victoria stopped inches from me. Her perfume enveloped me, soft, expensive, intoxicating. She reached out and touched the silver earring she'd given me, her fingers brushing the side of my neck. "Because this feels right." My breath caught. She smiled faintly, sensing my hesitation. "You're fighting it. You think this is about humiliation, about control. But it's not. It's about truth." "Truth," I repeated, barely audible. She nodded. "The version of you that's been hiding, quiet, obedient, desperate to please. This isn't new. You've just never allowed yourself to see it."
I took a step back.
"I'm not. I mean, this isn't who I am." Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed sharp. "Then why do you look so alive right now?" I wanted to argue, but she was right. Every nerve in my body was awake. The fear, the thrill, the strange sense of freedom. It was all there, undeniable. Victoria circled me slowly, her gaze tracing the outline of the dress, the curve of my shoulders, the way my hair framed my face. Look at you, she said, almost to herself. You carry this better than half the women in that ballroom. I blushed, hating how much that compliment affected me. Why are you doing this? I asked quietly. She paused behind me, her voice lowering to a whisper. Because you remind me of myself before I stopped pretending.
Her confession startled me.
You? Victoria smiled faintly. You think I was always like this, confident, untouchable, in control?
No.
I built this. Every inch of it. But I had to lose who I was first. She stepped closer again, so close that I could feel the warmth of her breath against my ear. And you, Evelyn, you're still trying to hold on to something that doesn't exist anymore. I turned to face her fully. Stop calling me that. Her eyes flashed.
Why?
Because it's not your name? Or because it feels too real? I couldn't answer. She smiled knowingly. You see? The more you fight it, the deeper you fall. I felt a rush of panic, of confusion. You're twisting things, I said. You're making me believe. I'm making you see, she interrupted firmly. The world has rules for people like you, people who don't fit neatly in boxes. You've been hiding in those rules for years. But I see the cracks. Her words hit too close. She was dismantling me piece by piece, and I didn't know how to stop her. Victoria stepped back finally, giving me space to breathe. She set down her wine glass and gestured toward the full-length mirror near the window. Look. I hesitated. Look, she repeated, her tone leaving no room for argument. I turned toward the mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't Ethan, not really. The makeup, the hair, the dress, all of it blended into something delicate yet strong. My eyes, though, told the real story. They weren't scared anymore. They were curious. Victoria came to stand behind me, her hands resting lightly on my shoulders. Do you see what I see? She whispered. I swallowed hard. I see someone I don't recognize. She leaned closer, her lips almost touching my ear. That's the point. The air between us grew heavy. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I could feel her heartbeat against my back, steady, in control. Then she said quietly, Tomorrow, everything changes. The world will see the woman I've seen all along. What do you mean? Victoria smiled slightly, her reflection meeting mine in the mirror. There's a reason I brought you here tonight. You're going to represent me at the upcoming investor meeting, in this form. Confident.
Composed.
Feminine. My breath caught. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious, she said calmly. You've already proven you can handle pressure. Now I want to see how far you'll go. I shook my head. I can't. This isn't professional. She raised a finger to my lips, silencing me. Professionalism is a mask. You've worn it well, Ethan. But masks crack eventually. Her touch lingered a moment longer than it should have. Then she turned away, her voice cool again. Go home.
Get some rest.
Tomorrow will be revealing. I stood there, heart pounding, unsure whether she was giving me an order or a warning. As I turned to leave, she said one last thing, softly, but with meaning that froze me in place. When you walk into that room tomorrow, don't bring Ethan with you. He'll only hold you back. The elevator ride down felt endless. I stared at my reflection in the mirrored walls, the painted lips, the soft curls, the calm face hiding chaos. Don't bring Ethan with you. Her words echoed in my mind all the way home. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again, wiping away my makeup, layer by layer. But no matter how much I removed, something in me refused to vanish. Evelyn wasn't just in the reflection anymore. She was in my thoughts, my heartbeat, my voice. And when I finally fell asleep, I dreamed of Victoria standing beside me, not as my boss, but as something far more dangerous. A mirror. A reflection of who I was becoming. Morning sunlight spilled through the curtains, catching the faint shimmer of the silver earrings on my nightstand. For a moment, I let myself believe that last night had been a dream, until I saw the garment bag hanging by my closet door, with a note pinned to it in Victoria's handwriting. For the meeting. Don't forget who you're becoming. My stomach twisted. The meeting, investors from London, were flying in today. It was the most important presentation of my career, and she expected me to face them as Evelyn. I told myself there was no way. I would show up as Ethan, the analyst she hired, the man I'd always been. But when I opened the garment bag, the thought evaporated. Inside was a tailored navy skirt suit, perfectly fitted, elegant, undeniably feminine. Beneath it lay a silk blouse, pale cream with a delicate bow collar. And below that, a small box. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside rested the same heels she'd made me wear at the gala. A chill ran down my spine. Somehow, I already knew I'd wear it. 2 hours later, I stood in front of my mirror again. The reflection staring back wasn't the man who had joined this company 2 years ago. The lines of my face looked softer, my movements more deliberate. I'd learned exactly how to apply the foundation Victoria had left for me, how to make my lips match the calm confidence she always carried. The fear was still there, but so was something else. A strange calm. When I arrived at the office, the world didn't collapse like I'd imagined. A few curious glances, a few whispers, but no laughter. No one even said my name. Victoria met me at the door of the boardroom. She looked immaculate as always, in a fitted black dress, hair tied back in a severe bun. "Right on time," she said, scanning me head to toe. "You followed instructions perfectly." "I don't know what you're trying to prove," I whispered. Her eyes locked on mine. "That you can handle truth," she said simply. She gestured for me to sit beside her at the head of the table. The investors were already settling in, sharp suits, stern faces. I felt their gazes shift toward me, questioning, but Victoria began before anyone could comment. "Gentlemen," she said smoothly, "this is Evelyn, my associate. She'll be presenting the first half of our projection model." For a split second, I couldn't breathe. But then, as if on autopilot, I began to speak. My voice came out softer than usual, but steady. Slide after slide, I explained the figures, the strategies, the vision Victoria had outlined. And as I spoke, something strange happened. The tension that had gripped my body began to ease. Every time she looked at me with that quiet, approving smile, it anchored me. The meeting stretched for an hour. When it ended, applause broke out. One of the senior investors even said, "Impressive work, Ms. Evelyn." I froze at the sound of the name, and Victoria's hand brushed mine under the table. A subtle squeeze. A silent affirmation. When the room finally cleared, I turned to her. "You introduced me as Evelyn," I said quietly. "I did," she replied. "And you handled it beautifully." "That wasn't part of the job," I said. "Maybe it's not a job anymore," she answered, her tone unreadable. I stared at her. "What are you doing to me?" Her gaze softened for just a moment. "Nothing you haven't already started yourself." I shook my head, trying to steady my thoughts. "You can't keep controlling me like this." She smiled faintly. "Then stop letting me." Before I could reply, the office door opened. Emma was standing there. My heart stopped. She looked at me, at the makeup, the blouse, the heels, then at Victoria. Her face went pale. "Ethan?" The room went silent. Victoria, ever composed, rose from her seat. "I'll give you two a moment." And just like that, she was gone. I stood frozen. Emma's eyes were wide with disbelief, anger, and something else, betrayal. "What is this?" she demanded. "It's not what it looks like," I said automatically. She let out a short, bitter laugh. "Then tell me what it is. Because right now, it looks like my boyfriend's been playing dress-up at work." Her voice cracked at the last word. I tried to reach for her, but she stepped back. "Emma, please." "It started as a mistake." "I was supposed to." "Supposed to what?" she interrupted. "Pretend to be someone else for your boss? Is this some kind of game between you two?" Tears stung my eyes.
"No."
"It's not a game." "Then what is it?" she pressed. "Because if this is who you are, then I deserve to know. If it's not, then why can't you stop?" I opened my mouth, but the words tangled in my throat. She looked at me for a long moment, and the hurt in her eyes was worse than any judgment I'd feared. "I don't even know who I'm talking to right now," she whispered. "Neither do I," I said softly. Emma turned and walked out before I could say another word. I stood there, trembling, mascara beginning to smudge, watching the door close behind her. When I finally turned back toward the window, Victoria was standing there again, silent. "You knew she'd come," I said quietly. She didn't answer. I felt a rush of anger. "You planned this." She took a step forward.
No.
"But I knew it had to happen. You can't live two lives forever, Evelyn." I looked at her, heart pounding. "You've taken everything from me." She shook her head slowly.
No.
"I've only shown you what was already inside you." Her words echoed through the room. And for the first time, I couldn't tell if I hated her or needed her. The sound of the door closing behind Emma lingered like an echo inside my chest. It wasn't just the end of a conversation. It felt like the end of a life I'd been trying to hold on to. I turned toward the window, the skyline blurring behind my reflection. My mascara had begun to run, streaking faintly down my cheeks. The woman staring back at me looked broken, fragile, but she was still standing. Victoria watched me silently from across the room. "She'll come around," she said softly. I shook my head. "You don't know her. You don't know what this means." "She saw you," Victoria said simply. "That's all she needed to do. The rest will take time." Her calmness made me furious. "You think this is some kind of lesson?" I snapped. "You've been pushing me, testing me, like I'm one of your projects. But this is my life." Victoria didn't flinch. "And what kind of life was it, Ethan? Hiding behind a tie and a title? Pretending to be someone you're not, just to make everyone else comfortable? You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," she interrupted sharply. "I spent years building walls so no one could see the real me. And when someone finally forced me to tear them down, I hated them for it until I realized they'd saved me." Her words hit something deep inside me. I turned away, unable to look at her. She walked closer, her heels clicking softly against the marble. "You're angry because I saw you before you saw yourself," she said. "But I'm not your enemy, Evelyn." "Stop calling me that," I whispered, my voice breaking. Victoria stopped in front of me. "Why?" "Because it's not who I am." She looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "Then why does it hurt so much when I say it?" The silence between us grew heavy. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but I couldn't, because somewhere deep down, part of me knew she wasn't. The rest of the office day passed in a blur. People avoided eye contact. A few whispered. Some smiled politely, unsure what to say. But Victoria kept moving through it all, as if nothing unusual had happened. By the time evening came, the office was nearly empty. I sat alone in the break room, staring at my reflection in the vending machine glass, lipstick slightly faded, hair still neatly pinned. I didn't even hear Victoria walk in until she set a cup of coffee beside me. "You did good work today," she said. I didn't answer. "Ethan," she said softly, using my real name for the first time in days. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked up at her, eyes tired. "Then why does it feel like you've been trying to break me?" She sighed. "Because sometimes breaking is the only way to rebuild." Her tone had changed, softer, almost regretful. "You think I enjoy being the villain in your story?" she said. "But what you don't see is that I've been exactly where you are now."
Scared. Confused. Angry.
"Lost." I frowned. "You?" Victoria nodded. "There was someone who pushed me once. Someone who forced me to confront everything I'd buried. And I hated them for it.
But now,
I'm grateful." She sat across from me. "You'll understand that one day." I rubbed my temples. "I don't know if I can." "You can," she said firmly. "Because I've seen who you really are, and once you've seen it too, there's no going back." Her words lingered in the air. Then she stood and walked to the door. "Go home," she said gently.
rest.
"Don't run from what you saw today." That night, the apartment felt emptier than ever. Emma's things were gone. Drawers half open, spaces on the shelf where her photos had been. She hadn't even left a note. I sat on the couch, still in my work clothes, staring at the quiet glow of the city outside. Victoria's words replayed in my mind. Once you've seen it, there's no going back. I tried to wipe away the lipstick, but my reflection did change. The more I tried to erase her, the more Evelyn stared back, calm, tired, but undeniably there. Finally, I whispered to the mirror, "What are you doing to me?" But there was no answer. Only my own reflection looking back, as if asking the same question. The next morning, I woke to a message from Victoria. "Victoria, meet me at the studio at 9. There's something you need to see." I almost ignored it, but something in her tone, that strange, commanding certainty, pulled me in again. When I arrived, she was waiting in front of a photography studio downtown. Inside, the space was empty except for a backdrop, a camera, and a row of outfits on hangers. "What is this?" I asked cautiously. Victoria smiled faintly. "Closure. Or maybe a beginning. Depends on what you choose." She gestured toward the clothes. "One last time, Evelyn. Show yourself who you really are, without fear, without shame. No one's watching but me." I hesitated. "This isn't about me anymore," she said. "It's about you." Slowly, I walked toward the rack. There were dresses, blouses, skirts, all elegant, understated. But one stood out, a cream-colored dress with a subtle shimmer, similar to the one from the gala. I touched the fabric. It felt warm, familiar. When I turned around, Victoria was watching silently. For the first time, she didn't order me. She didn't tell me what to wear, how to act, who to be. She just waited. And after a long moment, I nodded. Half an hour later, I stood in front of the camera. The lights were bright, the room silent. Victoria adjusted the focus, then looked at me. "Ready?" I swallowed hard.
No.
She smiled softly.
Good.
"That means you're honest." She lifted the camera, and I met my own gaze through the lens.
Don't pose, she said.
"Just be." The first click of the shutter echoed through the room, sharp, final, real. And in that moment, something shifted. Ethan, the man who'd always hidden behind expectations, began to fade. Evelyn wasn't pretending anymore. She was breathing. Victoria lowered the camera slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now you see her." I stood before the tall mirror in my apartment, frozen. The reflection staring back at me wasn't a disguise anymore. It wasn't just makeup, heels, and clothes. It was me. My posture, my gestures, even the subtle way my eyes softened. It all looked natural. Feminine. Victoria's words echoed in my head. "You're becoming exactly what you were meant to be." That morning, she'd called me into her office again, her tone softer than ever. The usual edge in her voice had vanished, replaced by something disturbingly intimate. "Evelyn," she had said, "no hesitation anymore. The presentation tomorrow will decide your promotion. But remember, appearances matter." I had nodded without a thought, only realizing hours later that she meant more than just my business attire. Now, as I stared at the reflection, I felt torn between panic and awe. My hair framed my face in gentle waves. The blouse hugged my body like it belonged there. The skirt swayed lightly as I shifted, the feeling of nylon brushing my thighs electric. I didn't know where the act ended and where I began. A knock broke the silence. It was Victoria. When she entered, her perfume filled the room before her presence did. She looked at me with quiet satisfaction. "You've come far," she murmured, circling me like an artist admiring her finished painting. I tried to protest. "Victoria, this was just for the job. It was supposed to be temporary." She smiled faintly, eyes gleaming. "Then why do you sound disappointed saying that?" I couldn't answer. She came closer, resting her hand lightly under my chin, lifting my face. "You're beautiful, Evelyn. The world will see you tomorrow, and they won't question who you are. They'll believe it. Because you believe it now." Something inside me cracked. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but my voice faltered. Deep down, I knew she was right. That night, I sat alone, unable to sleep. Every piece of clothing in my closet whispered reminders of how far I'd come. The confidence I'd found in the act, the strange comfort I felt in the skin. The old me, Michael, was fading like a ghost. I stared at the reflection one last time before turning off the lights. And for the first time, I didn't recognize the man I used to be. Only Evelyn remained. The next morning, the office felt colder than usual. Or maybe it was me, too aware of every eye that might turn, every whisper that could start. My heels clicked across the marble floor, echoing louder than they should have. Victoria had chosen my outfit herself. A fitted cream blouse, pencil skirt, and subtle heels, professional, but undeniably feminine. When I'd tried to suggest a suit, she'd laughed softly. "You'll stand out more this way, Evelyn. Trust me." Now, standing outside the conference room, clutching my folder, I wasn't sure if I trusted anyone, least of all myself. "Ready?" Victoria asked, appearing beside me. She looked calm, powerful, in complete control. "You look perfect," she whispered, brushing a stray lock of hair behind my ear. The simple touch sent a shiver down my spine. The doors opened. The boardroom was full, senior executives, investors, and department heads. Dozens of sharp eyes turned toward me as Victoria introduced me. "This is Evelyn," she said smoothly, not a flicker of hesitation. "She's been instrumental in developing the project we're about to present." The room was silent for half a heartbeat, then nods, smiles, polite interest. No one questioned the name. No one blinked at my appearance. I wasn't a disguise anymore. I was simply Evelyn. As I began to speak, my voice, trained for weeks under Victoria's patient coaching, flowed easily. Confident.
Clear.
Feminine. Every slide, every point, every answer felt like second nature. The nervousness melted into focus. For the first time, I wasn't performing. I was owning it. Halfway through, I glanced at Victoria. She watched me with a small, proud smile. But there was something else there too. Satisfaction. Possession. When the presentation ended, the room erupted in applause. Compliments, handshakes, praise, all directed at me. "You've outdone yourself, Evelyn," one of the directors said. "You've got real poise." "Thank you," I replied automatically, my voice soft but steady. After the meeting, Victoria guided me into her office. The door shut with a soft click behind us. "You did beautifully," she said, her tone low, warm. They saw exactly what I wanted them to see. I tried to smile, but my hands trembled slightly. I thought I'd be terrified, but it felt right, she finished for me. I hesitated, then nodded.
Yes.
It felt right. She came closer. "That's because this isn't a mask anymore, Evelyn. It's you." I swallowed hard. "But what happens now? Can I just go back?" Her gaze hardened slightly. "Go back? To what? To hiding? To pretending that this isn't who you've become?" I looked down. The truth sat heavy between us. "I changed you because I saw what you could be," she continued softly. "And now everyone else sees it too." I whispered, "You changed me for you." She smiled faintly. "Maybe. But you stayed this way for you." The words hit deeper than I expected. That night, alone again, I replayed the day over and over. The admiration in people's eyes. The way I carried myself. The comfort I'd felt being called Evelyn. And I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to let it go. The suit, the name, the voice, they no longer fit the person I was now. Victoria's voice echoed in my mind. "They believe it because you believe it." For the first time, I admitted it to myself. Out loud. Whispering to the empty room. "I am Evelyn." The words didn't sound strange. They sounded true. The mirror across the room caught my reflection again, and this time, there was no doubt left. Evelyn was real, and she wasn't leaving. The weekend came like a deep breath after the storm, but peace didn't follow. I stood in front of my wardrobe, staring at the two sides that divided my life. On the left, suits, jeans, plain shirts, Ryan's clothes. On the right, blouses, skirts, dresses, Evelyn's world. Two people hanging side by side, waiting for me to choose. The thought of putting on Ryan's clothes again made my stomach twist. They felt foreign now, like a costume from a life I barely recognized. My reflection, my posture, Even the way I carried myself, everything had shifted. Victoria's voice still echoed in my mind. You stayed this way for you. I didn't want to admit it, but she was right. When I first started all this, it was supposed to be temporary. A way to impress her, to save my job, to survive the chaos she pulled me into. But somewhere along the way, the lines blurred. Evelyn wasn't just a disguise anymore. She was who I'd always been afraid to be. The doorbell rang. My heart jumped. It was her. Victoria stood in the doorway, casual but composed, a confident smile playing on her lips. You didn't answer my messages, she said. I was starting to think you were avoiding me. I needed time, I replied quietly. She stepped inside, her heels clicking softly against the floor. To decide who you are? I nodded. Her eyes moved to the wardrobe. Both sides open, both versions of me exposed. So, she said, who did you choose? I hesitated. I don't know if it's about choosing anymore. She tilted her head. Explain. I turned to face her. Ryan feels like a name from someone else's story. Evelyn feels like me. But it scares me. What if this isn't real? What if it's just something you built? She smiled, not mockingly, but with quiet certainty. I didn't build you, Evelyn. I just showed you what was already there. I felt tears prick my eyes. Then why does it hurt so much to admit it? Because transformation always hurts, she said gently. You're not losing yourself. You're becoming who you were meant to be. She reached out, brushing her thumb across my cheek, wiping away a tear. Look at you, she whispered. You're radiant when you stop fighting it. Something inside me broke. Or maybe it healed. I wasn't sure which. I stepped closer. You knew this would happen, didn't you? Victoria's lips curved slightly. I hoped it would. There was silence between us, the kind that hums with unspoken truths. Finally, she said, there's a dinner tonight. A client event. I want you there. As Evelyn. My pulse quickened. Victoria, I can't. You already have, she interrupted softly. You stood in front of the board. You own the room. They believed in you. So will everyone else. I wanted to argue, to retreat, but deep down I didn't want to hide anymore. I looked at the wardrobe again. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for a black dress. Elegant, simple, undeniably feminine. Victoria smiled approvingly. Perfect choice. An hour later, I stood before the mirror once more. My makeup was soft, my hair styled just enough to frame my face. Every detail felt deliberate, not an act, but an affirmation. Victoria appeared behind me, adjusting the necklace around my neck. Her reflection met mine. You look beautiful, she said. I whispered, thank you. Her hand lingered on my shoulder. Remember this feeling, Evelyn. The moment you stopped pretending. At the dinner, I moved through the crowd like someone new. People laughed, complimented me, listened to what I had to say. Not once did I feel out of place. Victoria stayed close but didn't hover. She wanted me to own it, and I did. For the first time, I wasn't hiding behind a mask. I was living it. By the end of the night, as we walked to the car, she turned to me. You realize, she said softly, there's no going back now. I didn't answer immediately. The city lights reflected in the car windows, and in that moment, I saw two reflections merge into one. Finally, I whispered, I know. She smiled. Good. Because I don't ever want to hear you call yourself Ryan again. I looked at her, then at my reflection, and nodded. I won't. The night air was cool against my skin as we drove away. Everything I'd been clinging to, the fear, the doubt, the guilt, began to fade. Maybe this wasn't how I imagined my life would go. Maybe it wasn't planned or fair or logical. But it was real. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The next morning felt like a dream. Sunlight poured through the curtains, brushing against my skin, soft and warm. The air smelled faintly of Victoria's perfume, a reminder of the night before. I had fallen asleep as Evelyn. And for once, I hadn't dreamed of running. But peace never lasts long. When I walked into the office later that day, heads turned. There was a subtle difference in the air, whispers, glances, a ripple of attention that hadn't been there before. My heels clicked across the marble floor, confident, steady. But something felt off.
Then I saw it.
An email notification flashed across my phone. Subject line: Who is Evelyn?
Eyes.
My heart stopped. The message had been sent to everyone in the office. Attached was a blurry photo, me, from the night of the dinner. My dress, unmistakable. My name tag, clearly visible, Evelyn. Someone had taken a picture. The blood drained from my face. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet as coworkers gathered around their screens, murmuring. The same people who had praised my presentation days earlier now stared with confusion, curiosity, and judgment. Then I heard the voice I feared most. Evelyn. Victoria stood in the hallway, holding her phone, her expression unreadable. For a moment, the entire office fell silent. I wanted to disappear. She looked straight at me, not angry, not surprised, just calm. Then she turned to the others. Back to work, everyone, she said sharply.
Now.
The crowd scattered. The silence that followed was deafening. She led me into her office, closing the door behind us. I could feel my pulse racing. My throat was dry.
Who did this?
I whispered. Victoria's eyes were dark. Someone who doesn't understand power, she said coldly. But we'll handle it. I shook my head. No, Victoria. You don't understand. It's over. They know. They all know. She stepped closer, her tone low, almost commanding. Look at me. I couldn't. Evelyn. Her voice softened. You faced worse than this. You stood in front of a boardroom of strangers and owned it. Why are you afraid now? Because this isn't a performance anymore. I cried. This is my life. Her expression changed, something between pride and sorrow.
Exactly.
And that means you can't hide anymore. I felt tears sting my eyes. I'm not ready for this. Yes, you are, she whispered. I turned toward the window, watching the city blur through my tears. The office, my second home, my battlefield, now felt like a cage. What if they fire me? I asked quietly. Then we'll build something better, Victoria said. Together. Her certainty scared me.
It also steadied me.
Then her phone buzzed. She looked at it, her expression tightening. It's HR. They want to speak with you. My stomach dropped.
Now.
She nodded. I'll go with you. As we walked down the corridor, I could feel eyes following us. Every whisper, every sideways glance felt like a blade. At the HR office, the manager looked uneasy. Evil, she hesitated, unsure which name to use. We received some concerning messages. About your identity. I held my breath. Victoria crossed her arms. If this is about discrimination, I'll have legal on the line in 10 minutes. The manager flinched. No, it's not that. We just want to confirm how you'd like to be identified in company records moving forward. My mouth fell open.
What?
She smiled nervously. Your presentation and performance have been exceptional. We don't care what name you go by, just make it official. It took me a few seconds to process what she was saying. Victoria's hand found mine under the table, squeezing lightly. Then, I said softly, make it Evelyn. The manager nodded. Understood. We walked out of the office in silence. My heart was pounding, not from fear anymore, but from something else entirely. Relief. But just as I began to breathe again, a voice called out from behind. Ryan. I froze. It was Emma. She stood at the end of the hallway. The woman I'd loved, the one who had no idea what had happened. Her eyes darted between me and Victoria, confusion twisting into disbelief. Well, what are you wearing? She stammered. What's going on? The world went quiet. Every heartbeat sounded like thunder in my ears. Victoria stepped forward slightly, but I stopped her. No, I whispered. This is mine to face. I turned toward Emma, meeting her wide eyes. Emma, I said softly, I need you to listen. But before I could finish, she shook her head. Don't. I don't even recognize you anymore. Her voice cracked as she backed away. You've changed. I wanted to speak, to explain, to make her understand, but no words came. Only silence. The elevator doors opened behind her. She stepped inside, eyes glistening, and the last thing she said before the doors closed was, "I don't know who you are anymore." The sound of the doors shutting echoed through the corridor. Victoria's voice broke the silence. "She'll come around," she said gently. But I wasn't so sure. As I turned back toward the window, the reflection staring back at me wasn't trembling anymore. She was calm.
Composed. Strong.
Maybe Emma couldn't recognize her, but I could. Evelyn was here to stay. Still deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. The world had seen her now, and there was no hiding anymore. The office felt different that morning. The hum of computers, the clicking of keyboards, everything was normal, yet everything felt fragile. I walked down the corridor in my heels, each step measured, deliberate. Evelyn moved with confidence now, but inside, a storm brewed. The photo, the email, the whispers.
Someone had exposed me.
Someone knew my secret, and they weren't done. Victoria met me at the elevator, her expression unreadable. She handed me a folder, sealed, with no explanation. "You'll want to see this," she said softly. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were copies of internal messages, subtle hints, screenshots, even a grainy security photo showing someone near the boardroom the night of the dinner. Whoever had sent that email had been planning it for weeks. I felt a surge of panic, quickly tempered by the calm I'd earned as Evelyn. I couldn't run. Not now. Not ever again. Victoria's voice broke my thoughts. "This isn't just an attack," she said quietly. "It's a message." I looked up, heart pounding. "A message." She nodded. "Someone wants to test you, to see if you're really ready to be Evelyn, to see if you can survive when the world knows your secret." The words hit harder than I expected. "And if I can't, you'll learn," she said, her gaze firm, unwavering. "Because I'm not letting you fail." I swallowed, gripping the folder tightly. For the first time, the stakes weren't just about identity or transformation. They were about survival. And I knew one thing for certain. The woman behind the leak was out there, watching, waiting, and I had to find her. The city outside the window glittered like a promise, or a warning. I didn't know which. I had spent the entire morning scanning emails, reviewing security footage, and asking subtle questions of colleagues, all while maintaining the perfect Evelyn composure. Every laugh, every nod, every good morning felt like a mask I had to wear, but it wasn't acting anymore. Evelyn was real. And yet, someone was pulling strings behind the scenes. It started with small things. Files moved, coffee cups slightly out of place, chairs turned slightly toward my desk as if someone had been watching. Each tiny clue made my stomach churn. Then I saw her. A woman I hadn't noticed before, slim, dark-haired, with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. She moved across the office like she owned every step, stopping briefly near the printer, her gaze flicking to me. My pulse raced. Something about her felt wrong. Victoria appeared beside me, silently observing the woman. "Do you see her?" she whispered. "Yes," I hissed. "Who is she?" Victoria shook her head. "I don't know, but I've been watching her for weeks. She's careful, calculated, and dangerous." Before I could ask more, the woman disappeared into the elevator, her brief smile haunting. I felt a cold shiver. Whoever she was, she had been the one behind the leak. And she had just told me she knew I was Evelyn. Later that evening, back in my apartment, I replayed the day in my mind. Every glance, every step, every whisper from the office seemed like part of a carefully orchestrated trap. Then my phone buzzed. A message with no sender. "I know who you are. I've been waiting." The text made me freeze. My reflection in the mirror stared back, eyes wide. Evelyn had survived everything else, the transformation, the exposure, the doubts. But this felt different. Victoria's words echoed in my head. "Someone wants to test you, to see if you can survive when the world knows your secret." I stared at my phone, my hands trembling. The message was clear, simple, terrifying. They were close, and they weren't going to stop. The screen went black, and I knew, Whoever was behind this was already inside my world. Watching, waiting, preparing their next move. I swallowed hard, whispering to the reflection in the mirror. I'm ready. But are you? Outside, the city lights blinked innocently, but I knew better. Danger had a name now, and it was coming for Evelyn.